So Israel and Hamas have closed in on a hostage swap agreement. The deal is done. So they just finished up this deal. This is breaking news, essentially. The discussion had been going on for the last couple of days on a hostage swap of some type. I'm going to go over the deal with you. This does not include all of the hostages, so this will not be all hostages in the swap. This is going to be about 50 hostages from Gaza in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners. They are going to have a temporary ceasefire in exchange for the 50 hostages. So 50 hostages, 150 Palestinian prisoners. They've said that the Palestinian prisoners are ones who did not kill anybody. They might have been involved in what Israel calls terrorism, and that ranges from a variety of different acts. And so, but these are not people who've killed anybody. They do want to run this by the courts, but they say that this is going to be for each case of the prisoners that they intend to release. They're going to be running these by the courts to make sure that there isn't some sort of issue, and then they're going to be going ahead and releasing. So they don't expect this release to happen right in the next day, but maybe the day after. So they're saying the 50 hostages are going to include 30 children, 8 mothers, and 12 women are expected to be released. So this is the swap. They've said that there was some pushback on this. There were some far-right people that opposed this hostage swap deal, but otherwise they've decided to do it. They're going to be giving a ceasefire for a few days, and this could extend. They could end up extending this deal. Let me just kind of get to the updates on this, because this is kind of fast breaking news, and it just continues to kind of evolve a little bit. But they are going to be doing a ceasefire for a few days. This could end up being extended. If there's an idea that Hamas might release even more than 50, like 10 more hostages in exchange for a ceasefire for maybe a 6th day. So right now I think it's for 4 or 5 days of the ceasefire. And that could be extended if they end up giving them some more hostages. Now, there are over 200 people in custody. Another thing that's interesting about the swap is that Israel has said they're only negotiating for Israeli hostages. So some of these are Americans, but they're Americans with Israeli citizenship. They're saying that other countries, this is where it gets weird, right, with Israel, because Israel's the one who's bombing Hamas. Israel's the one who's at war with Hamas. No other countries are at war with Hamas. But Israel is saying that if you want your hostages back, saying this to other countries, then you're going to have to do your own negotiation. Well, what leverage does any other country have? Are they going to be able to say, okay, we'll stop bombing you in exchange for our hostages? Well, those other countries aren't bombing Hamas. So it's odd that Israel wouldn't use their power to also to get all of the hostages back, not just Israeli citizens, but everybody. It seems that one of the first things that should have been negotiated maybe is foreign citizens to be let go first, because they're not Israelis, they're not occupiers, is what Hamas would categorize them as. So Hamas's beef is against the occupation, the occupiers against Israel's blockade on Gaza. And so if you're holding foreign nationals that are not even Israeli, it seems like that would be an easier negotiation. But Israel's saying, no, we're only negotiating for the Israelis. This is what Biden had to say about this. So this was just earlier. I just want to play this for you. He was saying we are very close, but I just want to play this so you could hear from him. And I'm sure he's going to update and give another statement. But this is what he had to say before this deal was officially struck. Watch this.
We're now very close, very close. We could bring some of these hostages home very soon. But I don't want to get into the details of things, because nothing is done until it's done. And we have more to say, we will, but things are looking good at the moment.
Well, and it turns out that that deal ended up getting done. We don't, again, some of the details, it's going to get a little bit muddy when they discuss which hostages are going to be doing the exact swap with, and that's where they have to get into further negotiations. Here's Netanyahu. So a lot of people have said, well, see, all Hamas ever had to do was let go of the hostages and none of this would have happened. That is not true. Netanyahu has vowed war on Hamas, hostages or no hostages. So this hostage swap would not have, had Hamas let go of all the hostages, it would not have changed the outcome of what is happening right now in Gaza. And that is something that is just a fallacy that some people believe, is that the only thing Israel wants back are their hostages. Israel has made clear, hostages or no hostages, they're going after Hamas. There was really no incentive for Hamas to release these hostages except to get a few days of a ceasefire. Now, Israel is saying, oh, well, they're going to use these days. They're going to use these days to rebuild, and we're wary about that. And we're not, they're going to be reorganizing, and they're going to be doing some tactical things so that they can kind of re-gear themselves for more attacks. And that's, of course, true. Any military or any militia group would. But this is a war that would have continued to go on and will continue to go on even when every last hostage is released. This is what Netanyahu had to say.
We're destroying their infrastructure, their command posts, their rockets, their underground tunnels, and we're going to win because we have to win. This is a battle of the forces of civilization against the forces of barbarism. And if barbarism wins in our part of the world, Europe will be next and America will be next, because the axis of terror of Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis and their other minions will imperil the Middle East and then spread their barbarism to the entire world. Israel is fighting our war, but it's also fighting America's war. It's fighting your war, and our victory will be your victory.
Oh, right. Okay. So there's that narrative again. We're fighting your war because if we don't win and if we don't defeat this, it's going to spread to you. It's going to spread throughout Europe and it's going to spread to you. Or really, we could just change I mean, that's just an immigration thing, right? So Europe doesn't have to have the particular immigration laws that they have, and neither does the United States, if you think that there's truly a fear. So if you're in the camp of thinking Islam is spreading and they're coming to us and we're going to have all these radicals and our culture is changing, then just change your immigration laws. You don't need to go to war. That's absurd to think that the only way to defeat it is to go to war and kill people. Oh, you could just close your borders if that's what you think. Now, one thing is that it's very clear that the U.S. and Netanyahu's government are not aligned. This is very clear as time has gone on, and this is going to be really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if the U.S. has really any control or power over Israel. For many, many years, the thought was that Israel was little America. That's what Iran calls Israel. That's why Iran and many of the Arab nations in the Middle East are offended by Israel and Israel's existence in the Middle East, because they feel like it's really just a giant U.S. base, a giant U.S. military strategic post right there pointing at them with nukes pointing in their direction. They don't like it. So for the longest time, Israel's been called Little America or America's little brother, but it's looking like that may have changed and that the power has shifted, and that Israel may have more power over the United States than the United States has over Israel. And this is where we're going to really see what happens, is how the ending of this war, what happens at the end of this war, what happens day one at the end of this war. Is Israel going to occupy Gaza? Are the far right, which is now just turned into mainstream right, factions, are they going to win in pushing the Palestinians out to Egypt? Is that something that they're going to be able to successfully do, is basically expel an entire population? Right now, the U.S., though, is trying to pressure for a two-state solution and pressure Israel into not occupying Gaza when this is all said and done. So the U.S. has sent over their energy security advisor, who is Amos Hochstein. And Amos is actually a U.S. and Israeli citizen. He was born in Israel, but he's a dual national, and he's the Biden energy security advisor. So he went over to Israel to push for Gazans to have offshore gas reserves and using those gas reserves in order to revitalize their economy. And this is something that apparently was proposed back in June. And now the U.S. is trying to push for it, saying, hey, listen, we've got to allow Gaza to rebuild once the Palestinian Authority, this is what the Biden administration is pushing for, is for the Palestinian Authority, which is the authority over the West Bank, to go into Gaza, take control over Gaza, and to get oil reserves. And with those oil reserves, they would be able to rebuild their economy and also use it for energy, which is what they need, because in Gaza, they were only getting 4 hours a day of energy even before the war broke out. So this is what the U.S. is kind of angling for, and using their, Israeli-born energy security advisor to hopefully go over there and kind of finesse things a little bit. But here's Netanyahu reiterating that Gaza will not be under the control of the Palestinian Authority when the war is over. And the reason why Netanyahu wants that is because he does not want a two-state solution. In order to get to a two-state solution, you need to have one government that is over the Palestinian people who would then negotiate that deal. That is something that Netanyahu has effectively destroyed. The Oslo Accords, he's bragged about effectively destroying them. He's bragged about effectively destroying any hope for a two-state solution by keeping Hamas in power in Gaza. So if you could keep the Palestinians divided, then you never get to a two-state solution. The Biden administration is pushing for the Palestinian Authority to go in and control Gaza. Netanyahu has his own plans. Here's Netanyahu once again reiterating Israel's refusal to allow Palestinian Authority to control Gaza after the war. Watch this.
Horrible massacre at the Nature Festival near Gaza. It actually accused Israel of carrying out that massacre. This is a complete reversal of truth. Abu Mazen, who in the past has denied the existence of the Holocaust, today is denying the existence of the Hamas massacre. And that's unacceptable. My goal is that the day after we destroy Hamas, any future civil administration in Gaza does not deny the massacre, does not educate its children to become terrorists, does not pay for terrorists, and does not tell its children that their ultimate goal in life is to see the destruction and dissolution of the state of Israel. That's not acceptable, and that is not the way to achieve peace.
Okay, so no two-state solution is ultimately what he's saying. He's saying it in a really nice way, flowery way to get you to go along with it. With, no, look, the PA, they ruined things. This is all their fault, even though this is Hamas. But now he's at war with the PA, it seems. And he's saying, no, they're not going to control it. And that's really him just saying there will be no two-state solution. It's dead in the water. Here's Biden, though, reiterating that two-state solution.
I made it clear to the Israelis that, to Bibi and to his war cabinet, that I think the only ultimate answer here is a two-state solution that's real. We got to get to the point where there is an ability to be able to even talk without worrying about whether or not we're just dealing with, they're dealing with Hamas that's going to engage in the same activities they did over the past, on the 7th. So but I can't tell, I'm not a fortune teller, I can't tell you how long it's going to last. But I can tell you I don't think it ultimately ends until there's a two-state solution. I made it clear to the Israelis, I think it's a big mistake for them to think they're going to occupy Gaza and maintain Gaza. I don't think that works. And so I think you're going to see efforts to bring along, well, I shouldn't go into it anymore because that's been things I've been negotiating with Arab countries and others about what the next steps are.
So clearly they are not seeing eye to eye on this. And let me show you why. Netanyahu is the leader of the Likud party. They're in power. They will not relinquish power easily. They're going to continue the war for as long as they can in order to maintain power. So we might see a widening of that war. That is why we saw over the last couple of days attacks on Lebanon. Hezbollah then attacked back. That was actually a rare occasion of Israel striking Lebanon first. One might wonder, why would they strike Lebanon first? And, well, the answer is easy, because Netanyahu's trying to keep this war going for as long as possible, because he knows as soon as this war is over, he's done. So, and so is his Likud party. So they're going to do everything. They're like madmen right now, crazed madmen, going to do anything that they can in order to remain in power. I want to show you this. This is from the Likud party's charter. So everyone talks about Hamas's charter and how Hamas is calling for a free Palestine and for the end of Israel. Well, the Likud party charter calls for the end of Palestine, for no two-state solution, saying the right of the Jewish people to the land of Israel is eternal and indisputable and is linked with the right to security and peace. Therefore, Judea and Samaria, this is what they call the West Bank, will not be handed to any foreign administration. Between the sea and the Jordan, there will only be Israeli sovereignty. That is their call. So you've got river to sea, Palestine will be free. Likud says between the sea and the Jordan, there will only be Israeli sovereignty. Same phrase. And they're saying Israel is the only country that will exist between the river and the sea. That's it. There will be no other country. And they say a plan which relinquishes parts of Western Eretz Israel undermines our right to the country, unavoidably leads to the establishment of a Palestinian state. jeopardizes the security of the Jewish population, endangers the existence of the state of Israel, and frustrates any prospect of peace. That's the Likud charter. He is set, they say it right there. There will be no Palestinian state. Don't even think about it. It's not going to happen. So as long as Netanyahu, the madman Netanyahu, and his ilk are in power, there will be no two-state solution. So you see the power struggle between the United States now, who has always asserted a two-state solution, and Netanyahu, the madman, and his Likud ilk in power saying there will be no two-state solution. We're going to see who wins this battle. And that will show us who's really, truly in charge of who. I mean, at this point, we're giving $14-15 billion to Israel to fight this war, which isn't even a real war. Hamas, the Palestinians are not legally allowed a military. They are not legally allowed a military. So remember that when the conversation comes up of, well, why does Hamas embed themselves within civilian life? Why don't they build military bases like any proper military? Because they're not legally allowed a military. That was part of the Oslo Accords. They're not allowed a military. So if they start building military bases, guess what will happen? They will be blown up. They're not allowed to have a military. This is not an actual recruited, raised, paid army. These are essentially civilians who have risen up. It's a civilian militia. That is exactly what it is. And so, of course, they're within civilian life because this is a guerrilla warfare style militia, civilian militia group with no real true military. So you have to keep that into perspective whenever you're thinking about how this conflict unfolds and the things that Hamas is doing and the things that Israel is doing. Keep in mind the charter of Likud. And so we're going to see who actually ends up winning this between the war between the United States and Israel, who's going to end up winning it in the end. It's going to be very interesting to continue watching and extremely unfortunate for the Gazan people who are, I'm happy to see this deal go through. They will also be receiving aid trucks. So aid trucks will be allowed to come in mass during this time to bring in as much aid as possible to the people. So this is a good thing, and we would like to see this ceasefire last longer, but really dreading the day the ceasefire ends.